everybody. Thank you for your time and your leadership and what you do in our community and the presentation that you've brought to us today. Very excited about the plans and the new location. As you know, Steve, obviously you and I have met many times over this past year plus, and the team, and I think you all have done a really good job thus far. So I do have some comments and I have some questions I'm going to kind of sprinkle in together and go through my little list. And so I want to start off by just saying that council's declared 2 emergencies, and that's been my lens on this whole question about the new campus from the beginning. Those emergencies being climate and housing, right? So those are at the front of my mind as I look through my lens as a council member at this project. So commitment and goals to be set for climate action, resiliency, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions for this project are a priority and a value of mine, and I believe this council's. So that needs to be set, and I know staff is working with you on it, but it sounds like we're not quite there yet. Buildings should strive for net zero. I'm sure, Stephen, you probably know, and I'd love for you to speak to that. Net zero healthcare is a growing movement, and that healthcare contributes about 10% of the country's greenhouse gas emissions. So this would be a huge way for us to really set a new standard and really a step forward when it comes to neutrality. Oakland has the first hospital to be a net zero hospital in the States, to my research, and it'd be great for Flagstaff to be second, or at least come close to that. So things like solar, Vice Mayor, I know you really like and appreciate solar use, and so solar, electrification where possible of the space and water heaters, whatever we can. Understanding that some of the tools that you all use and the machines you use might not be able to meet these goals and needs, where we can, making this happen. That's a big priority to me individually, and I think to this council at large. Creation of a transportation demand management program would go a long way here to reduce car travel to the site, which might result in a savings in terms of what is needed. But I think we need a transportation demand management program. And I know that staff is working with you on that as well, but that's not yet in place. I want to say thank you for your partnership and collaboration with Mountain Line and Mountain Line leadership. It's my understanding that you're hoping to do a more phased-in approach rather than a fixed route at the beginning, and I can appreciate that. But I just wanted to acknowledge that partnership and thank you for that. On the topic of roundabouts, I did hear, Tiffany, you say that they are single lane, and that's wonderful. But if we are struggling with that option, protected intersections is what I'd hope we also would consider if we go the intersection route. Love that we're talking about small workout stations along the foots, fully support that. And so here's a question, Steve, if you don't mind answering. So NAH is planning to employ around 4,000 employees, making you all the largest partner and employer in Northern Arizona, which is massive and wonderful. Are these mostly predominantly high-wage employees? And how does NAH plan to house these 4,000 employees?
Okay, so just for clarification, the entire health and wellness village is proposed to have 4,000 employees when completely built out in the 2040-2045 timeframe. NAH's plan from an employment perspective, phase 1, meaning opening of the hospital in 2027, is intended to be employee neutral just for NAH. While we are increasing in size, we are also increasing in efficiencies, which will help us to overcome the staffing challenges of staffing a larger facility. So we do have a proposed 315-unit multifamily housing development on our project. Right now, we have a development partner who is willing to commit to 10% of that being tax credit backed low-income housing. I think we would be open to investigating that further. It's hard to put together what the economics of that deal look like without a firm timeline and understanding of when it's going to happen and how it's going to roll out. So from NAH specifically, we don't see a large increase from an employment perspective in this phase 1. We do show additional bed capacity in the future. So 44 beds of capacity that could grow within the confines of the building we're building that opens in 2027. And then ultimately a third bed tower that could include another 96 or so beds. We have employee growth built into the model moving forward. But the difference between our current employment and the 4,000 is some of the employees that are around the hospital themselves. Councilman Sherman, I think as you know, the hospital itself is a mix of salaries from an employment perspective. But I would think that a high percentage of our employment base would be considered in the middle income workforce model.
Thank you for that. And Steve, so in that first phase, how many employees do you plan to have? Is it 315 or what do you think? What do you think that number will be?
Oh, I think we'll be at about 2,000 employees when we move, but that's how many employees we have now.
Right.
At FNC.
Right. And a lot of those individuals are going to move with the new location.
I do not know that to be true. I would think that we would have some employees that would relocate. I would think that we have some employees who are currently either struggling to find housing in Flagstaff proper and or renting that might want to look at moving onto the new campus in the units that we're providing. But we have not done an internal housing assessment of what our employees are going to be doing in 5 years.
Okay, so council, vice mayor, and everybody on this meeting, you know, I obviously, Steve, and you and I have talked a lot about housing on the site, and I've talked about that with the team, and I just don't know if 315 is adequate. I do have concerns about that. And I guess I'll just voice them here. I think, you know, we were talking about a LIHTC project, low income tax credit housing project that would maybe house 400, 500 individuals on the site, on the new site, not the old one. But we can circle back to that later. So I do have some concerns about the housing. Okay, so moving along almost to the end of my list. So in terms of the fire concerns, I think that they're very valid concerns, obviously. And given how big of a project this is, and that this is the second specific plan in our city of Flagstaff with this 112-foot, 160-foot height building, I think that we really do need to take the fire concerns seriously. And Councilmember Aslam, thank you for bringing that up. And so I think we need to work through that sticky point, as was mentioned, as well, a little bit further before I feel really comfortable about us moving forward here. And then transparency was mentioned. Steve, I think you were talking about transparency, and I do appreciate all the transparency and community engagement. I just will go ahead and share that I have heard rumblings about pressure to submit letters, pressure not to speak out. And I don't know where that pressure is coming from NAH to whether it's employers or whoever it is, but hopefully you know what I'm talking about. And I just think that we need to address that up front and make sure that people feel comfortable and safe speaking up and sharing what it is that they believe is their truth and not feeling like they might be at a consequence for doing so.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with what you're talking about. Would love to understand more information. We are not internally as NAH pressuring any community groups and or NAH employees. We do have a letter writing campaign internally and externally where we are asking people to write letters, but to my knowledge, we have never said to any group and or employee that there would be any consequences in not supporting us. So would love to understand more about that if that's happening.
Okay. Absolutely. We will talk more and I will get you more information. Thank you for that. And I know your intention is in the right place. And then, you know, just in closing, I appreciate the timeline that's being presented here. I do want us to do it right. I think that, you know, if you tuned into our retreat at all earlier today, you see that the city is getting things done and big things done. And there's great leadership in place. Even though we are understaffed, we are accomplishing major lifts for our community left and right. It's incredible to be a part of. And so I don't think that that's a worry of mine is getting it done. It's just a matter about when, right? And ideally, it'd be before our term is up as this council. I'd love to see this project through, but at the same time, I don't want to rush things. I want to do them right. And I want staff to be fully behind what it is we're doing and the community and the council as well. So I appreciate the timeline. I don't know if it's realistic, but I just wanted to share that I think we need to get it done, but we need to do it right, correct? And that is all. Thank you for entertaining my comments and for being with us today. And we will definitely continue conversations about